The Abduction of Persephone by Claudian, Book 1, Preface. He who first made a ship and clave therewith the deep, troubling the waters with roughly hewn oars, who first dared trust his alder bark to the uncertain winds, and who by his skill devised a way forbidden of nature, fearfully at the first essayed smooth seas, hugging the shore in an unadventurous course. But soon he began to attempt the crossing of broad bays, to leave the land and spread his canvas to the gentle south wind. And as little by little his growing courage led him on, and his heart forgot numbing fear, sailing now at large, he burst upon the open sea, and with the signs of heaven to guide him, passed triumphant through the storms of the Aegean and the Ionian main. Book 1. My full heart bids me boldly sing the horses of the ravisher from the underworld, and the stars darkened by the shadow of his infernal chariot, and the gloomy chambers of the queen of hell. Come not nigh, ye uninitiate. Now has divine madness driven all mortal thoughts from my breast, and my heart is filled with Phoebus's inspiration. Now I see the shrine reel and its foundations totter, while the threshold glows with radiant light, telling that the god is at hand. And now I hear a loud din from the depths of the earth. The temple of Cecrops re-echoes, and Eleusis waves its holy torches. The hissing snakes of Triptolemus raise their scaly necks chafed by the curving collar, and, up-towering as they glide smoothly along, stretch forth their rosy crests towards the chant. See from the far rises Hecate with her three various heads, and with her comes forth Bacchus, smooth of skin, his temples crowned with ivy. There clothes him the pelt of the Parthian tiger, its gilded claws knotted together, and the Lydian Thyrsus guides his drunken footsteps. Ye gods, whom the numberless host of the dead serves in ghostly Avernus, into whose greedy treasury is paid all that perishes upon the earth. Ye whose fields the pale streams of intertwining Styx surround, while Phlegethon, his rapids tossed in spray, flows through them with streaming eddies. Do you unfold for me the mysteries of your sacred stories and the secrets of your world? Say with what torch the god of love overcame Dis, and tell how Persephone was stolen away in her maiden pride to win chaos as a dower, and how through many lands Ceres, sore troubled, pursued her anxious search, whence corn was given to man, whereby he laid aside his acorn food, and the new-found ear made useless Dodona's oaks. Once on a time, the lord of Erebus blazed forth in swelling anger, threatening war upon the gods, because he alone was unwed and had long wasted the years in childless state, brooking no longer to lack the joys of wedlock and a husband's happiness, nor ever to know the dear name of father. Now all the monsters that lurk in hell's abyss rush together in warlike bands, and the Furies bind themselves with an oath against the Thunderer. Tisiphone, the bloody snakes clustering on her head, snakes the lurid pine torch, and summons to the ghostly camp the armed shades. Almost had the elements, once more at war with reluctant nature, broken their bond. The Titan brood, their deep prison house thrown open and their fetters cast off, had again seen heaven's light, and once more bloody Aegeon, bursting the knotted ropes that bound his huge form, had warred against the thunderbolts of Jove with 100-handed blows. But the dread fates brought these threats to naught, and fearing for the world, gravely laid their hoary locks before the feet and throne of the Lord of Hell, and with suppliant tears touched his knees with their hands, those hands beneath whose rule are all things set, whose thumbs twist the thread of fate and spin the long ages with their iron spindles. First Lachesis, her hair unkempt and disordered, thus called out upon the cruel king. Great Lord of Night, ruler over the shades, thou at whose command our threads are spun, who appointest the end and origin of all things, and ordainedest the alteration of birth and destruction, arbiter thou of life and death, for whatever thing comes anywhere into being, it is by thy gift that it is created and owes its life to thee. And after a fixed cycle of years, thou sendest souls once more into mortal bodies. Seek not to break the established treaty of peace with our distaffs have spun and given thee, and overturn not in civil war the compact fixed twixt thee and thy two brothers. Why raisest thou unrighteous standards of war? Why freest the soul bands of Titans to the open air? Ask of Jove, and he will give thee a wife. Scarce had she spoken when Pluto stopped, shamed by her prayer, and his grim spirit grew mild through little want to be curbed. Even so great Boreas, armed with strident blasts and tempestuous with congealed snow, his wings all frozen with Getic hail as he seeks battle, threatens to overwhelm the sea, the woods, and the fields with sounding storm. But should Aeolus chance to bar against him the brazen doors, idly his fury dies away, and his storms retire balked to their prison house. Then he bids summon to Mercury, the son of Maia, that he may carry these flaming words to Jove. Straightway the winged god of Cyllene stands at his side, shaking his sleepy wand, his herald capped upon his head. Pluto himself sits propped on his rugged throne, awful in funeral majesty, foul with age-long dust in his mighty scepter. Bonding clouds make grim his lofty head, unpitying is the stiffness of his dread shape, rage heightened the terror of his aspect. Then with uplifted head he thunders forth these words, while as the tyrant speaks his halls tremble and are still. The massy hound, guardian of the gate, restrains the barking of his triple head, and Cocytus sinks back repressing his fount of tears. Acheron is dumb with silent wave, and the banks of Phlegethon ease their murmuring. Grandchild of Atlas, Arcadian born, deity that sharest hell and heaven, thou who alone hast the right to cross either threshold, and art the intermediary between the two worlds, go swiftly, cleave the winds, and bear these my behests to proud Jove. Hast thou, cruel brother, such complete authority over me? Did injurious fortune rob me at once of power and light? Because day was wrest from me, lost I therefore strength and weapons? Thinkest thou me humble and cowed, because I hurl not bolts forged by the Cyclops, and fool not the empty air with thunder? Is it not enough that, deprived of pleasant light of day, I submit to the ill fortune of the third and final choice of these hideous realms, whilst thee the starry heavens adorn, and the wane surrounds with twinkling brilliance? Must thou also forbid our marriage? Amphitrite, daughter of Nereus, holds Neptune in her sea-grey embrace. Juno, thy sister and thy wife, takes thee to her bosom, when wearied thou layest aside thy thunderbolts. What need to tell of thy secret love for Leto or Ceres or great Themis? How manifold a hope of offspring was thine! Now a crowd of happy children surrounds thee. And shall I in this empty palace, sans joy, sans fame, know no child's love to still instant care? I will not brook so dull a life. I swear by elemental night and the unexplored shallows of Stygian lake, if thou refuse to hearken to my word, I will throw open hell and call forth her monsters, will break Saturn's old chains and shroud the sun in darkness. The framework of the world shall be loosened, and the shining heavens mingle with Avernus' shades. Scarce had he spoken when his messenger trod the stars. The father heard the message, and communing with himself, debated long who would dare such a marriage, who would wish to exchange the sun for the caves of Styx. He would fain decide at length his fixed purpose grew. Ceres, whose temple is at Henna, had but one youthful daughter, a child long prayed for the goddess of birth granted no second offspring, and her womb, exhausted by that first labor, became unfruitful. Yet prouder is the mother above all mothers, and Persephone such as to take the place of many. Her mother's care and darling is she. Not more lovingly does the fierce mother cow tend her calf that cannot as yet scamper over the fields, and whose growing horns curve not yet moonwise over her forehead. As the years were fulfilled, she had grown a maiden ripe for marriage, and thoughts of the torch of wedlock stir her girlish modesty. But while she longs for a husband, she yet fears to plight troth. The voice of suitors is heard throughout the palace. Two gods woo the maiden, Mars, more skilled with the shield, and Phoebus, the mightier bowman. Mars offers Rhodope, Phoebus would give Amyclae, and Delos and his temple at Claros. In rivalry, Juno and Latona claim her for a son's wife, but golden-haired Ceres disdains both, and fearing lest her daughter should be stolen away, how blind to the future, secretly entrusts her jewel to the land of Sicily, confident in the safe nature of this hiding place. Trinacria was once a part of Italy, but sea and tide changed the face of the land. Victorious Nereus brake his bounds and interflowed the cleft mountains with his waves, whereby a narrow channel now separates these kindred lands. Nature now thrusts out into the sea the three-cornered island, cut off from the mainland to which it once belonged. At one extremity, the promontory of Pacinum hurls back with jutting crags the furious waves of the Ionian main. Round another roars the African sea that rises and beats upon the curving harbor of Lilybaeum. At the third, the raging Tyrrhenian flood, impatient of restraint, shakes the obstacle of Cape Pelorus. In the midst of the island rise the charred cliffs of Etna, eloquent monument of Jove's victory over the giants, the tomb of Enceladus, whose bound and bruised body breathes forth endless sulfur clouds with its burning wounds. Whenever his rebellious shoulders shift their burden to the right or left, the island is shaken from its foundations, and the walls of tottering cities sway this way and that. The peaks of Etna thou must know by sight alone. To them no foot may approach. The rest is clothed with foliage, but the summit no husbandman tills. Now it sends forth native smoke, and with pitched black cloud darkens and oppresses the day. Now with awful stirrings it threatens the stars, and feeds its flame with the dread fruit of its own body. But though it boils and bursts forth with such great heat, yet it knows how to observe a truce with the snow, and together with glowing ashes the ice grows hard, protected from the great heat and secured by indwelling cold, so that the harmless flame licks the neighboring frost with the breath that keeps it compact. What huge engine breathes? What huge engine hurls those rocks? What vast force piles rock on rock? Whence flows forth that fiery stream? Whether it be that the wind, forcing its way past hidden barriers, rages amid the fissured rocks that seek to bar its passage, and, seeking a way of escape, sweeps the crumbling caverns with its wandering blasts in its bid for freedom, or that the sea, flowing in through the bowels of the sulphurous mountain, bursts into flame when its waters are compressed and casts up great rocks, I know not. When the loving mother had entrusted her charge to the secret keeping of Henna, she went, freed from care, to visit tower-crowned Cybele in her Phrygian home, driving a car drawn by twinning serpents which cleave the pervious clouds on their winged course and fleck the bit with harmless poison. Their heads are crested, and spots of green mottle their back, while sparkling gold glints amid their scales. Now they swim, circling through the air. Now they skim the fields with low-driven course. The passing wheels sow the ploughland with golden grain, and their track grows yellow with corn. Sprouting stalks cover their traces, and attendant crops clothe the path of the goddess. Now is left behind Etna, and all Sicily sinks lessening into the distance. Ah, how often, foreknowing of coming ill, did she mar her cheek with welling tears. How often look back upon her home with words like these: Be happy, dear land, dearer than heaven to me. Into thy safe keeping I commend my daughter. my sole joy, loved fruit of my labor. No despicable reward shall be thine, for thou shalt suffer no hoe, nor shall cruel iron of the plowshare know thy soil. Until thy field shall bear fruit, and though thine oxen plow not, a richer husbandman shall view with wonder the self-sown harvest. So spake she, and reached Mount Ida, drawn by her yellow serpents. Here is the queenly seat of the goddess, and in her holy temple the sacred statue, overshadowed by the thick leaves of the pine wood which, though no storm wind shakes the grove, gives forth creakings with its cone-bearing branches. Within are the dread bands of the initiate, with whose wild chantings the shrine rings. Ida is loud with howlings, and Gargarus bends his woods in fear. As soon as Ceres appears, the drums restrain their rattle, the choirs are silent, and the corybantes stay the flourish of their knives. Pipes and cymbals are still, and the lions sink their manes in greeting. Cybele, rejoicing, runs forth from the shrine and bends her towered head to kiss her guest. Long had Jove seen this, watching from his lofty seat, and to Venus he thus unfolded the secrets of his heart. Goddess of Cythera, I will impart to thee my hidden troubles. Long ago I decided that fair Persephone should be given in marriage to the Lord of Hell. Such is Atropos' bidding, such old Themis' prophecy. Now that her mother has left Sicily, and armed with thy wiles, lead Ceres' daughter to sport in the level meads, what time tomorrow's light has unfolded the rosy dawn. Employ those arts with which thou art wont to inflame all things, often even myself. Why should the nether kingdoms know not love? Let no land be free, and no beast, even amid the shades, unfired by Venus. At last, let the gloomy fury feel the sting of passion, and Acheron and the steely heart of stern Dis grow tender with love's arrows. Venus hates to do his bidding, and at their sire's behest there join her Pallas and Diana, whose bent bow affrights all Menelaus' slopes. Neath her divine feet the path shone bright, even as a comet, fraught with augury of ill, falls headlong, a glowing portent of blood-red fire. No sailor may look on it and live, no people view it but to their destruction. The message of its threatening tale is storm to ships and an enemy's attack to cities. They reach the place where shone Ceres' palace, firm built by the Cyclops' hands. Up tower the iron walls, iron stand the gates, and steel bars secure the massy doors. Neither Pyrgmon nor Stereopsis ever builded a work with toil so great as that, nor ever did bellows breathe forth such blasts, nor the molten mass of metal flow in a stream so deep that the very furnaces were weary of heating it. The hall was walled with ivory, the roof strengthened with beams of bronze and supported by lofty columns of electron. Persephone herself, soothing the house with sweet song, was sewing all in vain, a gift against her mother's return. In this cloth she embroidered with her needle the concourse of atoms and the dwelling of the Father of the gods, and pictured how Mother Nature ordered elemental chaos, and how the first principles of things sprang apart, each to his proper place, those that were light being borne aloft, the heavier ones falling to the center. The air grew bright, and fire chose the pole at its seat. Here flowed the sea, there hung the earth suspended. Many were the colors she employed, trickling the stars with gold and flooding the sea with purple. The shore she embossed with precious stones and cunningly employed raised threadwork to imitate the swelling billows. You might have thought you saw the seaweed dashed against the rocks and heard the murmur of the hissing waves flooding up the thirsty sands. 5 zones she added, indicating that the center was the torrid zone by embroidering it with red yarn. Its desert confines are parched, and the thread she used was dried by the sun's unfailing heat. On either side lay the 2 habitable zones, blessed with a mild climate fit for the life of man. At the top and bottom she set the 2 frozen zones, portraying eternal winter's horror in her weaving and the gloom of never-ceasing cold. Further she embroidered the accursed seat of her uncle, Dis, and the nether gods, her destined fellows. Nor did the omen pass unmarked, for, prophetic of the future, her cheeks grew wet with sudden tears. Next she began to trace ocean's glassy shallows at the tapestry's farthest edge, but at that moment the doors opened. She saw the goddess enter, and left her work unfinished. A glowing blush that mantled to her clear cheeks suffused her fair countenance and lit the torches of stainless purity. Not so beautiful, even the glow of ivory which a Lydian maid was stained with Sidon's scarlet dye. Now the sun was dipped in ocean. A mighty sight scattering sleep had brought for mortals ease and leisure in her black 2-horsed chariot, when Pluto, warned by his brother, made his way to the upper air. The dread fury Alecto yokes to the chariot pole the 2 fierce pairs of steeds that graze Cocytus's banks and roam the dark meads of Erebus, and drinking the rotten pools of sluggish Lethe, let dark oblivion drip from their slumberous lips. Orphnaeus, savage and fleet, Aethon, swifter than an arrow, great Nycteus, proud glory of hell's steeds, and Alastor, branded with the mark of Dis. These stood harnessed before the door and savagely clamped the bit, all eager for the morrow's enjoyment of their destined booty.